Oh, the news just keeps getting better for your Denver Broncos because the Los Angeles Chargers just blew it this offseason. Not only did they lose several key starters on defense, they failed time and time again in free agency and in the draft to fill any meaningful holes, and it all dates back to that playoff loss when Justin Herbert threw 4 interceptions. It is wild, wild stuff. In this video, we are breaking down why the Broncos are going to win the AFC West because of the bad moves of the Los Angeles Chargers. Coach Harbaugh is famous for yelling, "Who's got it better than us?" And the whole team supposedly yells nobody, and in this case everybody has got it better than the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's dive in here. So this offseason started off with a real bang for the Chargers. They went into this year's offseason with $90 million in cap space, and so Chargers fans all over the place, there's only one of them, but he was all over the place, and he was so hyped, saying like, hey, we got the second most cap space in the entire NFL. Yet I bet if you asked most typical NFL fans, who did the Chargers land in the offseason, nobody could name somebody. We're going to tell you who they picked up, and it's not a good thing. So much so that you see in their version of Predominantly Orange, their Sports Illustrated syndicate came out and had to write a defense piece saying, Chargers players are urging you, do not panic. Like, that's the first thing you say when it's time to panic. If you're saying don't panic, it's time to panic, bolt heads, because it is bolts down for the Los Angeles Chargers. You even just look at unbiased sources ranking how different teams did in the offseason, and you're giving the Chargers a C+, which was one of the lowest grades they gave out. Everybody wants to hype up the moves that teams did just to keep people watching. And on the other side of the aisle, you look at the Broncos, who made the playoffs, almost an identical record, had a much better showing against a much tougher team in the playoffs, and you have the Broncos get an A for free agency. So why are they giving them a C+ on their additions? And then when you actually factor in the players they lost, it drops from a C+ down to a D. So let's talk about some of the players that they lost. So first off, you take a look at the best defensive player for the entire organization last year. You're looking at him right here, Puna Ford. He is bye-bye. He is absolutely gone. He had the highest PFF ranking of the entire team. He actually was one of the highest rated interior defensive linemen in the entire free agent period, and the Chargers let him go without filling in for that. So when you talk about the Broncos and Sean Payton last year, it was against the Chargers that he had on the back of his play sheet, run the ball, and we couldn't run the ball. That was a struggle. We got away from it. Well, it's going to be much easier running on the ball knowing that they don't have Puna Ford anymore. I absolutely love that. On top of that, not only are you losing your interior defensive lineman, you are also losing probably the best pass rusher on this team, without a doubt. And so obviously there's a lot of talk about in Chargers fandom about are we celebrating that he left, or are we sad that he left? Because he was really overpaid. Obviously, we were talking about Nick Bosa right here, or sorry, rather Joey Bosa. He's the second best Bosa brother, his brother playing for the San Francisco 49ers. And even though he was paid a ton, he also is one of the best pass rushers in the game still. You look at here that since 2021, his name is popping up here with guys like Von Miller, Trey Hendrickson, obviously Chris Jones, Myles Garrett, and the Chargers. Boom, he let him walk. He signed immediately with the Buffalo Bills, and they are kicking themselves that they were able to get Joey Bosa and that the Chargers let him walk. Really, he was an injury concern and has missed something like 29 games over the past 3 seasons, but when he plays, he is a difference maker. You see his pass rush win right here on this side of the column. I think this is fantastic for the Broncos that you are losing it. So you're talking about 2 serious starters on that defensive line, just absolutely gone. So then let's go elsewhere. Let's look at in their secondary. Sorry, I'm struggling with where my face goes on the screen. Asante Samuel Jr., obviously Asante Samuel Sr. played in the NFL, a great player. He missed some time last year with an injury, but as a rookie was one of the standouts. He was a second-round draft pick, and you just let this guy go for nothing. In one of their playoff games in his rookie year, he had 3 interceptions, and he was expected to be a starting corner this year. So we're now talking about 3 defensive starters this team has lost. And then we're not done yet. We're not even close to being done. They also lost one of their best defensive backs, Kristian Fulton, who signed immediately with the Kansas City Chiefs. So anytime you are a playoff team and guys that you cut or let walk immediately sign and are expected to start on one of your competitors, it's just not a great thing. PFF gave him a 82 PFF grade in man coverage and an 81 in zone coverage. So you're talking about a very, very capable defender. So you're now down 2 starting corners. You're missing 2 guys on that defensive line. And it's just really good. So all of their eggs are in the basket of Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack at his prime was a difference maker, and I would say you put him in the competition or put him in the conversation with Von Miller. He is definitely very, very good. But We are also looking at a guy who's going to be 34. He is 34 years old now. This graph here on the right shows the production over time and over years. And if you thought the drop-off of production for tight end was a steep drop-off, look at the drop-off when it comes to edge rushers. Their best year is years 26, 27, 28. The graph barely even goes to 34 years. So the fact is we've seen this drop out of Khalil Mack. Do you remember against the Denver Broncos when Khalil Mack had 6 sacks in one game? He had 6 sacks all last season. So all of the eggs for the Chargers basket on defense is right here with Khalil Mack, and he's 34 years old. You take a look at that 6 sack season, he would have been the 5th best sacker on this Denver Broncos roster last year. And we're talking, hey, we're going to see way more this year, knowing that now we got Quay Robinson. We know that we're going to have Jonah Ellis healthy all season, but Nick Bonito, 13.5 sacks, Jonathan Allen, 10.5, Zach Allen, 8.5, Jonathan Franklin Myers had 7 sacks, and Khalil Mack barely ekes out what he used to get in one game against the Denver Broncos. So I think those are just a ton of losses that you absolutely cannot look past. On top of that, you go to the offensive side of the ball. We know that a couple years ago they lost Keenan Allen, and about half of Justin Herbert's targets went to Keenan Allen. They never replaced him, but the guy who got the bulk of those balls going to him last year was Josh Palmer. Again, immediately he is moved on from, and immediately he's picked up again by the Buffalo Bills, and he is going to start. And Josh Allen came out and just raved about him, said that this guy is a Toronto kid, and there's a ton of Canadians who root for Buffalo, so they're going to love him, and that he's very fluid in his routes, creates tons of separation, and the advanced analytics show that as well. You look that he had 700 yards receiving in 2023. He had a 90 PFF score on targets over 20 yards. And he was the perfect complement to Ladd McConkey, because you have Ladd McConkey as that little slot monster, the little underneath digs, all of that kind of stuff. And he was your deep ball threat, and he is now gone. So you just look at those that's 5 starters on a playoff team that got blown out in the playoffs who are gone. They're just gone. And so who did they go out? I'm sure they made great moves and replaced all those guys, right? They had the second most cap money in football. Oh, wait. They didn't. So they went out and replaced by giving a mega deal to this guy, Mekhi Becton. And this is a huge risk-reward opportunity for the Chargers. My guess, if the Broncos made this signing, I would be incredibly fearful for it, because if he does stay healthy, he's a monster. Like, he is an absolute behemoth. After his second knee surgery, he'd ballooned up to over 400 pounds, like a 6'8", just absolute monster of a man. But he has missed 2 full seasons completely. Obviously, remember him as a former very high draft pick with the New York Jets. And this was the first year that he had been fully healthy after those 2 reconstructed knees. I just think that as you age at that position, that is a big, big gamble for them to come away with, and maybe it pans out like it did in Philly. But if you were playing the risk-reward benefit, that is a lot to be putting on that. The other big gamble that they made, they're like, oh, we lost Josh Palmer. No problem. We're just bringing back Mike Williams. You remember Mike Williams because he got in toughs this year with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, and ended up like being benched for some of the New York Jets season and just did not jive with him. He's going to be 31 years of age when he starts this season. I think his birthday's in October or something like that. And you just take a look that when he was in Pittsburgh 2 years ago, the dude had 9 catches on 13 targets, and last year he had 12 catches on 21 targets. Just absolutely awful when you compare that to even our rookie of Devon Bailey having 41 catches on 55 targets, and that's with broken ribs and missing some games for the season. So you could easily make the argument that like our second year wide receiver is a much better wide receiver than they have here now, obviously, in Mike Williams. And so really they are gambling on Ladd McConkey just continuing to eat the lion's share. The production for Ladd McConkey, hats off to him. He had a phenomenal year and seemed to always be open. But the deal is he is a 5'11", 185-pound guy who is getting in car crashes every single play. And so even from the first time they played the Denver Broncos in Denver, that game that Patrick Surtain had the concussion in, he was shooken up from like the 3rd snap and holding his AC joint. He had 4 different injuries last season and was questionable all the time. And he accounted for 23% of Justin Herbert's targets last year. And so they needed desperately to go out and get someone to take some attention off of him, because you cannot handle those kind of car crashes at that body type. And it's not like he's a wide receiver who's getting open on these just deep like bombs where he steps out of bounds and avoids the hit. He is a cross the field, middle of the field slot monster who is getting lit up by linebackers and safeties all game. And you're saying like he's going to be going against Hufanga all year. Good luck to you, Ladd McConkey, because your team didn't help you out whatsoever in free agency, although they tried to, because the perfect move for the Chargers would have been to get our tight end, Evan Engram. And guess what? They tried, and he picked Bo Nix over Justin Herbert. And he said basically that exact same thing, that he watched film of both guys and he thinks he can be more successful in the Broncos offense. And I think he sees the writing on the wall for what is happening in LA. And this was the move that they wanted to do. They wanted Evan Engram, and they didn't get him, and we did. And it's great news for us. And you even just see the headline here. Anytime your local media is begging you, hey, don't panic, it was an okay offseason, and saying stuff like, oh, we lost our guy to Denver, that's terrible news. You'd never see a headline like that on Predominantly Orange. So when your own fan base is panicking, that is not a good sign whatsoever. So then you look, what did they do in free agency? Their other big move was Najee Harris. I thought that was a very, very smart move for him. That was a player I would have liked to see the Broncos go out and get, but all reports in Denver are that Sean Payton didn't even sniff that or didn't even consider it. And so that is what it is. And then they doubled that up by then also drafting a first-round running back in Omarion Hampton. I think that is very duplicitous there. Like, that is overkill. Like, you did not need to do that. Like, it would have been so much smarter to use the money on Najee Harris and give a bigger deal to Evan Engram, or go out and get Keenan Allen back, or go out and make a deal for Deebo Samuel. They need some offensive weapons, but to get two running backs when you're not going to be able to play both of these guys at the same time is just not a smart move whatsoever. And you just look here, why I'm excited that we got RJ Harvey is obviously Sean Payton is excited. And if you look at the history of Super Bowl winners, how many Super Bowl winners win the Super Bowl with a undrafted or very, very late round drafted running back? Like, we did it with CJ Anderson. When was he drafted again? Oh, wait, he wasn't drafted. And you see the same thing with the Patriots did it. The Eagles did it. Having an undrafted running back in LeGarrette Blount, winning it twice. And so that you don't need to draft a running back in the first round, especially when they already had Najee Harris. They would have been much better to go out and try to get a wide receiver, or to go out and have some Mekhi Becton insurance, and they didn't get it. And that's a great thing for us as Broncos fans. And then lastly, probably the most exciting thing is just the fact that they did not move on from their offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. Harbaugh is very, he's got his guys and he sticks to his guys and to his guns, but Greg Roman wants to run the University of Michigan run first, just pound them into the ground type of offense. That's why he went out and got Mekhi Becton, who probably is not going to stay healthy. That's why he got two stud running backs who are huge. That's just not how the NFL works anymore. Like you saw, we haven't had a 100-yard rusher since, like we're talking 3 years here. Like that, Sean Payton has to remind himself to run the ball, because you win in football now throwing the ball. And just looking here that you got Justin Herbert, who is a gunslinger. And there have been times in his career where he averages 40 passing attempts a game. And last year, under this new offense, he averaged just 23 passes a game. And you see in Chargers Kingdom, or whatever they call themselves, they're losing their mind that they kept their offensive coordinator, because he is playing a system of football that hasn't existed since the first Madden came out. And then just going back to, like, what did this team need to do? They got mollywopped in the playoffs, and they had all this money going in saying, like, hey, we have a chance to change some things. But tell me objectively, what's one thing they did this year that fixes the problems that we see on this screen? They let the Houston Texans score 32 points on them. Mixon ran for 106 yards, and then they lose two defensive linemen. CJ Stroud had almost 300 yards passing, and they lose two cornerbacks. And then Justin Herbert had 4 interceptions on a much worse team than Bo Nix, who played very well against the Buffalo Bills. And the Broncos dominated the offseason. So this is all just shaping up perfectly for what we are about to do. And you add on top of that, the Chargers' schedule is the second hardest in the AFC West, because they finished above us last year. And look at this top graphic here. The Chargers have to travel the most air miles in the entire NFL. They're going to be on an airplane all season long. Their only reprieve is when they are home the first round of the playoffs, because they are not making it this year. And that is something we can all believe in.